My name is Amanda Wheeler. I have been a resident of Yorba Linda, California for the last 21 years. The only fear that I've experienced in that 21-year period is that my son would be stopped, harassed, and even arrested by the police. The first incident that he experienced took place when he was 8 years old. He was stopped for riding on the wrong side of the street, on a location where I, as his mother, had insisted that he would ride his bicycle and nowhere else. Subsequent to that, when he was a teenager, he was stopped while driving the car and for allegedly making some type of a traffic violation. I had no problem with that, except for the fact that on the citation, his race was listed as N. I went off. I had no idea what is N. What does that mean? My son is not an N. He never has been an N. The last time I heard of anyone being called an N was when I was a young person living in Atlanta, Georgia, many years ago, when N was the appropriate thing for a police officer to call people of color. When he was first approached by the police as a young boy at 8 years old, I had no problem with the fact that they reprimanded him for riding on the wrong side of the street. What I had a problem with was the manner in which they spoke to him. They spoke to him in a very hostile and in a very disrespectful manner. When you speak to a child in that manner, it's very obvious that that child is going to be able to associate the officer with that type of language, that type of disrespect, and in turn will learn to disrespect you. And only through training and through talking with him are we able to tell him that this is not the way that all people have to be. Earlier, one of the chiefs, and I believe it was Chief Welter, mentioned that it's necessary for them to investigate suspicious individuals. And I understand that there are circumstances where people will appear suspicious. The problem that I have with that broad category is that the suspicious individual usually ends up being someone who looks like me. So I believe in your training and your evaluation, you need to really look into what constitutes a suspicious individual. And it's got to be more than just the color of that person's skin, because my son was a top graduate in his school. My son was the vice president of his high school. My son has gone on to have a very distinguished career. I will not begin to enumerate the many incidents of racial profiling that I experienced personally. I will just end this by saying that I want my child, we want our children to be treated in the same way that you want your children to be treated. I want to be treated in the same way that you want your wife, your mother, and your child to be treated. Thank you.
Resident, name of the city of residence.
My name is Reed Keith. I live in the city of Aliso Viejo. And I've had my share of feeling victimized, but that's not what I really want to discuss right now. What I'd like to have a suggestion. I've been in management for almost 30 years. And one thing I know is that what gets measured gets managed. And so I put out a challenge that you start looking at maybe some type of a ratio of detainments versus if you were detained and whether you received a citation or arrested. Start looking at that, because when people get pulled over, you use their driver's license. So all the race, all that's there. So you can easily break out that demographic. You're looking at a ratio of how many times people were legitimately stopped for something real. The data's there. The systems can tell us instantaneously what's going on. I just challenge you to look at that data, pull it together, make it public record, look at it in different areas. Obviously, there's certain parts of the county where I would expect a profiling demographic would be higher for some types of people, some types of cultures, than they would be for others. So I do think that all of our public officials are extremely, extremely competent, extremely capable. I'm not going to tell you how to fix the problem, but just want to throw out there, take the time to put in place something to keep your eye on the situation. Not saying necessarily that statistically it's a problem. look at it, figure out, is it a special cause, or is it, do we really have a statistical challenge? And once you start looking at the data, and again, make it public, manage to the data, and I do believe that you guys will resolve what the data shows. So that's all, just a suggestion. Thank you.